Welcome back to the Tiny Room Hanger. Happy Friday, everybody. This is Mike. Today I want to talk to you about 5 things that are sucking the fun out of collecting Masterpiece Transformers. Now, collecting Masterpiece Transformers can be fun, has been fun, but there's some obstacles, some issues, some things that we have to overcome and deal with. But I'm going to get into talking about all of those, and then I'm going to tell you just a little bit about why I still collect Masterpiece Transformers. Talk about this and more coming up. Alright, so the first issue that is sucking the fun out of collecting is, of course, the transformation. Now, I've talked about that, but I had a little bit of fun in past videos, taking my own pictures here, which it was kind of fun, of the transformation and kind of midpoint transformations. And with that, the reason that these transformations are less fun now than they were years ago is because they have to look perfect in both modes. And in order to do that, it's trying to capture the uncapturable, or bringing something that should never have brought into reality. And so it makes it a lot harder and more complex. Even though some of this stuff could be more or less intuitive, and you can say, well, I can see how it's working and all that kind of stuff, it's still not so much fun all the time. I think a lot of people out there like to have the challenge, but what is that? The challenge of the transformation is about 30% of the collecting base. I don't even see that being half the collecting base. It's 30%. Because I really believe 70% of collectors don't even transform their stuff. And I've asked in the comments, and it always pops up around that 65, 75, somewhere around there of percentage of people that don't collect, that do not transform their stuff. So a couple of examples is, I gotta say that Jive, this Fans Toys figure, was not the greatest transformation in the world. I mean, you had to take it from one perfect form to another perfect form for the most part, and doing that was not fun. But it wasn't horrible. It wasn't the worst Fans Toys transformation by far, and I have to say that it worked for the most part. And so it echoed through the community with this figure that it was not a fun transformation. And I heard that echo before I got my hands on it, and I actually was thinking it was going to be a nightmare. It wasn't that bad. Again, getting to both modes and it looking as good as possible in both modes. And then stuff like the opening doors. I mean, we always kind of run into that problem. When they add extra little gimmicks, it affects the transformation. Just like with X-Transbots and their fuzz, that was a nightmare of a transformation. And of course, everybody says you got to line up the parts just right. This is their Legends. I actually am hopeful that this thing is a pretty simplistic transformation, and maybe X-Transbots goes in a new direction with their Masterpiece, but I doubt it. I really think that the Masterpiece stuff's still going to be a little bit overly complicated, and hopefully this isn't overly complicated. Pretty much everything in this picture is a figure that sucked the fun out of collecting if you try to transform it. So the transformation does kind of suck on most of these, and so with that, I leave my Jabber in alt mode. I like the Jabber in alt mode. If I didn't review it, I never would have transformed it from the bot mode, so I feel like I kind of did benefit from it, but nothing at all about that transformation is fun. And it's the whole time you're transforming it, you're thinking, man, I wish I would have just left it in bot mode. Or at least that's what I was thinking. But now I leave it in the alt mode. I think it's a really cool, and it was worth the work and the fun, and it's fun for comparisons and all that kind of stuff. So anyhow, it's kind of cool, but the transformation itself sucked the fun out of this figure for me. So the next thing I want to talk about sucking the fun out of collecting is price and availability. And I will admit that it's getting a little bit better. It is getting a little bit better. But I'm going to reiterate this whole story problem that when Fans Toys came out with this Berserk pre-orders, and all these companies, all these distributors put the pre-orders up for $150 for this one, and I think it was $100 for the Outrider. Long story short is they made everyone cancel their pre-orders and then put it back up at $220. And so with that is a frustrating thing that happens, but pricing took a jump and it didn't really go down since then. But we did have some of the issues kind of level out, and as part of that is the shipping and all that kind of stuff, but still $220 for this, where on the old standard was $150. Now Takara is kind of a little bit different story. I think Takara topped out with their max pricing of this $450 for Optimus Prime, the MP44, and they only get away with that because it's Optimus Prime and because it had a trailer and all that kind of stuff. But with that, the Jetfire Skyfire that just came out, that thing for $270, I think it's a better Takara value than some of the Takara prices that we've seen before. Now, $270 isn't cheap, but $270 is really close to half of $450. It's a little above half of $450 for a much bigger figure. Does include less. It doesn't have a trailer, and he doesn't have quite as many accessories and all that kind of stuff. But $270 for a big figure coming from Takara, not bad, and a more simplified transformation, all that kind of stuff. There's still rumors of a reissue, or not a reissue, a KO. A KO. Fans Toys gets the KOs and the reissues. Should be at the same time, right? But the buzz this week's all about Recorder coming in from Fans Toys, and he's pretty available everywhere, so the availability's pretty easy to get your hands on price-wise. So around the $200 mark for Blaster, I don't think that's that bad of a price. But at the end of the day, though, you really can't be buying every Masterpiece Transformer for $200. He has a bigger one, so I think the price point's okay. But it seemed like a few years ago, this would have been $130. And so, yes, we're still feeling the sting of the price, but you can kind of get them everywhere. So maybe a sale down the road, who knows? So the next problem or issue on the list is too much of the same thing. And I have to say, what is it that's fun about the hype of this week? This week's hype is Recorder showing up, and people get their hands on Blaster, and everyone's discussing if it's better than Deformation Space, or is Deformation Space better in what ways, and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm going to say, this is a fantastic picture, and it has all of the options that are out there, the best options that are out there with Transistor, Fans Toys, and the Deformation Space, and all that kind of stuff. But it's not really very exciting. It's not very much fun to just keep replacing the figures you already have over and over and over with every release. And yes, it is a little bit fun to see, hey, what's Fans Toys' take on it? What's X-Transbot's take on it? And options are always good. Options are good in case you missed out on, say, Deformation Space when it was on sale for $80 or something. But it's still $200, and that's like the fun out of it. And now you're replacing something you already have? How fun can that be? Okay, so the next problem or issue that I seem to run into and that I'm seeing all collectors struggle with is space. Running out of space, availability of space to display, properly display, adequately display. Now, there are some collectors out there that have done a really good job with displaying their collection, but I'm finding that I get excited about a release, stuff that I'm excited about, and I'm like, where am I going to display it? Or what am I going to do with the old one? All this kind of stuff, especially if I don't want to get rid of the old one. So there's a lot of issues when it comes to space and ability to display these. I find myself, instead of building a thoughtful, well-planned display, which, 4 or 5 years ago, it was thoughtful, well-planned out. Now it's crammed, jammed, full, and I find myself just figuring out, where am I going to cram this next figure that it still looks somewhat halfway decent, and I can sort of see it. And so that is a problem. That's what I run into. A lot of other collectors run into it, but I do see some very good examples out there, which, that might be coming up soon, the 17,000 subscriber special. Submit your pictures. For me personally, I start looking around, I go, well, do I really want to display this toy line, or do I want to maybe put some more Masterpiece Transformers here? And I've been pretty good at not just getting rid of a whole toy line so I can have another shelf for Masterpiece Transformers. And so I have to make strategic decisions when it comes to displaying them, but when it comes to other lines, I try not to sacrifice them. And so it's kind of a balancing act that I continually play with my display. And I think a lot of people play that balancing act also. So when it comes to displaying your Masterpiece collection, I don't have all the answers. I wish I could say I had all the answers. I wish I did have all the answers. But I think that's very specific to each situation, each collection, and of course your own specific taste. Now the last negative, because I don't want to be a super downer the whole video, so the last negative is missing out on stuff. Something that you missed out on, and that really does suck. So we did talk about replacement items, and there's plenty of figures out there. Spotter's the one that everybody wants the most when it comes to this reflector set. But KFC made a good one, and then Make Toys has one that's out there, and I would say that I think the KFC is even taller than these, and these are early Fans Toys, so they're not the greatest, like on a scale of Fans Toys, top figures, or best figures. These are not the best things ever made, buy fans toys if you were to represent the entire company by anyway. I got a whole video plan just talking about Spotter and how everything has evolved since then. But with that, this set of figures is something that many collectors are trying to acquire or trying to go after, and it's something that a lot of collectors want in their collection, but a lot of people feel like we missed out. And there'll be more to come on this figure. Same thing with their Willis. I think a lot of the missed out, and hey, I feel like I missed out, is fans toys. Because if they put a figure out, there are people that would rather have Willis than what I think is actually a superior figure with the Takara version of Hound. But Willis is pretty solid. Now it's got its issues, mine doesn't, but other people have had issues with their Willis, and I was actually picked this figure up the other day, and I was looking at it, and I thought, I'm glad I still have this, because it does look pretty good. It's not a horrible figure. I will put money on Fans Toys never reissuing this, and if they ever come out with another Hound, if for whatever reason they come out with a Hound again, it will be a 2.0. And I know this is going to be another one of those things that irritate people, but I do feel like when they make a 2.0, they're admitting failure. They're admitting that we didn't do good enough first time, we're going to do a better one now. And I do understand they've been doing it a long time, they've got new tricks up their sleeve, they want to exercise those new tricks, but I'd actually rather them exercise new characters. Of course, there's the repaints, and I've talked about it a lot too, but there's currently some toy repaints available right now that if you think you might want those, this is a good time to get it, because when they sell out, this is astronomical. There's price on this thing, I don't even know what planet the price is for this guy. But I don't think they're ever going to reissue him again. I don't think there's ever going to be a blue recolor of this figure, and you're not going to get the G2 Grimlock. And that's kind of sad, but unless they make a 2.0 Grimlock and then they do repaints, I just don't see them putting it back out. Plus, when they say limited, well, most of the time, unless Quietus, and they say limited, it usually is a limited run. Now we're getting into some of the Takara figures they put out, and I think they did reissue this not too long ago, or somehow this was back on the market in some capacity, way, shape, or form. But it's still hard to get. This one's still hard to get. Still pretty expensive of a figure, and I gotta say that it's not the best figure in the world, but still the best looking. So he's still an attractive figure, a desirable figure that people go after. All right, so to not be a downer for the rest of the video, where's the fun in collecting Masterpiece Transformers? Why am I still in this? Well, this Like Toys Metroplex. Whether or not you pick it up, because I would venture to say less than 15% of collectors would be willing to shell out $1,000 for this thing. So with that, it's still fun to be around collecting and seeing this, watching reviews of it, hearing people talk about it, and just seeing this thing get made. It's fun. It's fun to be in the hobby watching it go on and being part of it. You are a part of it if you watch it and comment and talking about this kind of stuff. Even if you don't have the space for it, all that kind of stuff, it's just kind of mind-blowing this thing's getting made. And so things like this are fun and exciting in the community. The other thing that's fun is getting to look forward to something like this Punch Counter Punch. Really, it's exciting. Looking forward to a slew of really crazy stuff that Extreme Spots is doing. And then Fans Toys. Now, I did just bash too many of the same thing and all these reissues and all this kind of stuff, but we really don't have very many Masterpiece scale Chrome Domes. Really just the Make Toys, because all the other ones are too small. And so with that, kind of getting into this new area, I would have rather them do some of the other ones we don't have yet, though, which I believe Make Toys is going to get on. I think it's going to motivate Make Toys. So there's some fun things coming, right? Make Toys getting us Brainstorm and all of those. And even with all of these issues I discussed today, I still find collecting Masterpiece Transformers to be the most interesting, fun, and rewarding collection of toys, modern toys, and hey, at least it's not trying to keep up with collecting modern Star Wars. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Take care, here out.